Hi, everybody. I'm back again. Sure. Um, sorry I'm late. This is one of the reasons why I have problems with with doing live streams because I can't keep a consistent schedule. Um, but I do appreciate everybody who is joining with me, who will join with me. It's super late tonight. That's because I had a whole bunch of personal stuff happen. Um, plus, I'm in away today. I'm wearing a warm fuzzy because I am freezing cold. It is not that cold, honestly. I'm on the West Coast, so it's not that cold. But it is for those of us who are acclimatized. Anyway, so I am going to get into chapter 2. I'm noticing that like the first one was long enough. Um, this second chapter is, well, depending on which one version I read, is either 7 pages or 9 pages. Take your pick. Um, I know that was part of this is combining these two manuscripts together, like I was telling you before. They're different versions of the same story. Um, there's be parts of one that I'm liking. I'm only gonna read the one, and I'm not really gonna read the other one because otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense. Otherwise, you'll just hear the same story twice. Um, I do believe that I was combining them. I believe I got to a combination section. I'm gonna have to read over the what I did in the previous edits as well. So, but I'm not gonna write those out because I still am then going to be adding in the extra scenes and whatnot. Uh, Last night I did not get as much review done as I wanted on chapter one, but then again, like I said, there wasn't going to be a lot of editing in that area because it's a fairly decent, solid-ish first chapter. It introduces many of the people, not all, but many of the players in the story, and it just basically begins everything. This time around, um, I might get a little more critical. I'm probably not going to get too critical until I get further into the story. And my biggest issue with the story is lack of agency with some of the characters. Basically, the quote unquote noble savage. I know that that's not what my dad intended with the character, um, but it seems to kind of play out a little bit in that, especially when he glosses over some of the stuff that he does later on in the story. And I kind of want to actually talk about what he does in the story and have him, if he's off doing his side quest, then being able to have him talk and everything like that is important for the story. The other part is some of the well, and the other and Brennan, uh, she needs to have more agency. The main character kind of laughs at her for stuff later on in the story, and I'm just like, mm, it bothers me a lot. I know that he was trying to do like a historical piece, how like to some extent, like it's a uh, historical fantasy-ish, like so he was kind of leaning towards the way things were in medieval days. But I'm looking at this is where and this is what prompted me to get books like this because I just have a strong opinion about it. I pretty much believe that especially when you look at even if you go as far as a lot of farms in North America, um, there's a lot of farm wives who are very, very who are very, very much their own people. They, I mean, and I even try to talk about it from a it sounds bad. I sound like I'm talking, oh my god. But I'm talking historically because as much as people are still fighting for equality, there was even more so it was even worse as we go back further to some extent. But then at the same time, there are certain realities that come into play. And a good example of that, like I said, is farming, wherein you couldn't always rely on it to be just the man and the woman just stays home. That has a different kind of perspective in that kind of situation because in in a farming in a farming household, a lot of things are equally distributed because everyone has to do stuff in order to make things work on the whole entire land. So it becomes a different there's a different power structure and everything like that. People maybe delegated tasks, but it's more throughout the whole entire household rather than everything else. And that's just an example. Like if you go further through history, there are examples of females in like leadership positions and that sort of thing. And that was something of what I want to bring to this story. Hence the reason why I got all these different books so I could research historically what a lot of some examples of strong females throughout history because they were there, they existed, even though they were wiped out from history. A lot of them, some of them still made it through, and some of them you can read by reading around the story. So you may say like it's looking at things from an oblique angle because you have to draw a lot of straw like a lot of oh my goodness, you have to draw a lot of trace a lot of pathways between what's portrayed in history and then what obviously would be happening as a result. For example, a king rides off to war and leaves his like queen behind. Well, to some extent, she would then look after the kingdom while he was gone. She had advisors, things like that. But these are things that actually happened. So, I mean, it's just being realistic, honestly. And yeah, but that's my little rant, my pre-rant, and I'll probably be ranting throughout this whole entire storytelling. So, without further ado, I've rambled on enough about feminism in throughout historical feminism. That was not the discussion I wanted to have tonight. Well, actually, I don't mind having that discussion. I will repeatedly have that discussion and equality among people, humans, whoever you are, however you describe equality. Because yeah, and I believe, yeah, there's just so much I believe. My thought process. We need to do way more research than I've done. Please don't ask me questions, or ask me questions, and I'll just research it and get back to you. How about that? Because I'm all about that. Anyway, finally, we will get to the reading. Thank you. Alrighty. So, this is chapter 2 of Sword in the Rose. I don't even think I said that's what the name of the story was yesterday. It's called Sword in the Rose. Yesterday we were basically the Gwalsor comes into his new barony that he's been appointed to, and we meet Brennan, the the sister-in-law of the previous baron who was executed for rising against the king, and her um, loudmouth son who spoke his mind and mentioned and pointed out some shortcomings of, well, not even shortcomings, just basically called Gualsor a cripple because he was missing a hand. Um, like once again, well, not, yeah, that is a whole nother matter about ableism. Um, yeah, it's the thing. It gets kind of downplayed a little bit in the story, but that's a real thing in the story is that is missing he is missing one of his hands. I can't remember what his writer's left. Anyways, in the story, I'd have to reread it again. But and we meet Melga, uh, Gwalsor's man at arms, who is looking out for his best interests and making sure that, he survives from day to day. Then um, there is an attack and a curse is placed on Gwalsor's room, so he has to move to a different room. And a wizard is contracted in or Pemberland to look into the matter and find out what had happened. So now I present chapter 2. Jadal Dar Konas was outside the door the next morning. He looked a little pale and distressed. It seemed clear to Gwalsor that the boy did not know what to expect from the Baron and was afraid he would not like it. "Good morning, page. Have you eaten yet?" My lord?" "Yes, my lord." "Good. Have you any notion of what a page is expected to do?" A little, my lord." The worried expression increased. "Well, I won't promise you that you'll like everything about it. In fact, if you are a normal boy, there are things you'll hate. But I won't ask things of you that are beyond the usual duties of a page, and I won't make life unduly harsh for you. There are people who say, I was treated badly when I was a page, so I let my page suffer. I'm not one of those. As for your duties, they are to do anything and everything I require of you. Any man of full knightly rank may require services of you, and if you are not immediately engaged on work for me, or expecting to be engaged for work for me, you will do it. If you wish to grumble or about anything, don't do it in my hearing, or in the hearing of anyone you think might report back to me. And for your immediate duties, the clothing I wore on the trip here needs to be cleaned. The leathers you will clean yourself, the other clothing will be delivered to the castle laundry. Further, though I can manage most things about dressing one-handed, I cannot manage knots. I will need your assistance when there are knots to be tied. Questions? None, my lord. Jadal seemed to be losing his nervousness rapidly. Good. Be about your work, then. As Jadal was gathering the clothing together, Malgathup entered, practically unnoticed. Ah, the ill-tempered brat, eh? You whip him yet, lord? His conduct this morning has not yet deserved whipping, Malga. So, what news? Most trained men march off with old Baron and not come back. Few return, but we serious lacking in warriors. If we need to defend ourselves. Sorry, but we serious lacking in warriors if we need to defend ourselves. Castle arm stores serious depleted, but we can remedy that. Food is difficulty. Some tenants serious low bringing in tithes, and bailiffs not work serious much at getting tithes in. Rumors say Baron Wardick over east want move in on our land, knowing he served king in rebellion and knowing we weak. Well, sir gave him a look. All that you found out in this little time? Telepata shrugged. People talk. Most of it common sense, what you expect in Barony and such mess. Like rumors say bandits gather in some place swamp, some peace swamp called Lesmore, and rebellion last year drive prices something serious up. But one other thing, and I'm not sure what to say about the gnomes are coming in. The gnomes are coming in? Quelser repeated. Why do the gnomes come in? Again, Malgathup shrugged. Not no, but it's serious unusual. Gnomes mostly avoid people. They live in caves and woods or whatever they live in out there, and sometimes travel down to marketplaces to sell wares. Make copper kettles, make ropes, leather harnesses, long list other things. There are some gnomes in most large towns live off to themselves. Partly because prefer to be with own kind, partly because people distrust them. This year, more gnomes come in to those places from woods. Some people say it means serious hard winter. Some say it mean omen of troubled times. And that all I know. But there were gnomes in the woods back home, and we had no such tales. But gnomes in our part of the country, fewer, even more shy. Serious seldom come into towns, even for trade. So, perhaps I should go to the gnomes and ask them why they've come in? Not serious easy. They most pretend not understand your language. Others give answers mean little or nothing. Balsor shot him a look. You've already tried asking. I'd have I'd not have thought you'd had the time. Experience. Malgatha grinned briefly. Experience. Yes. What wild reindeer loving Lafetta bandit doing in the service of a real person? Get so anytime anybody asks about your past, you mutter a couple word, go away. Welser nodded. That sort of thing never occurred to me. But then I'm neither a gnome nor a Lafetta. Well, gnomes or no, I'm sure that Ralno has a list of as long as your arm of people whose cases absolutely must be heard by the Baron. I'd best show myself. Boy serious polite this morning, Lord. Maybe he think deep on what trouble he might find. Walsor's brow furrowed. I wonder why those two were in the crowd yesterday. I'd have thought they wouldn't want to risk calling themselves to my attention. No good choices for those two, Lord. They not know you, only hear rumors. If they hide, someone serious sure tell you. You may be worried that they hide for guilty reason. If they come out, they draw attention. And maybe it because sister-in-law and heir to rebel, you feel safer without them. Well, sir nodded. I hadn't considered it like that, but of course you are right. Would you have really ridden over and lopped off his head yesterday? Malgathop shrugged and grinned. More likely put the flat of it across his breeches. But these people belong to Revel. Not know if they love us or hate us. Not want to ride in a crowd with no weapon, but good looks. Yes, but your sword set Lady Brinion to wondering just what sort of man I might be. That one of my people was about to teach manners to it with a bare sword. No wonder she was nearly frantic about me harming her son. Did they really tell stories about me eating babies? Malgathep chuckled. Maybe so, but all she really know is you come to take place of Rebel Baron. Boy heir to Rebel, you maybe feel safer with him out of way, just in case. Older ones have mercy. It was easier when all I had to worry about was whether my brother would be able to find a holding for me, or if I just end up as one of his knights, or just ended up as one of his knights. The audience hall of Grandel Castle was a large, high vaulted place. The echoes from the stone walls were muted by the tapestries and hangings on the walls, depicting scenes from history and legend. Many of the hangings meant little to Gualsor, since they portrayed historical scenes from the old baronial line. Several, however, showed scenes from well known legends, though there were some of these that seemed to be different from the forms of legend as he knew them. There were scenes from the tale of Austen's ride, for instance. But why was Austen drinking wine from Lady Galilant's slipper? Another effect of the tapestries and hangings was to add some color to what would otherwise be a drab stone room. This dash of color was augmented by the colors among the clothing of the people present. The lower classes, of course, only wore gray, brown, or black, but those of greater means were able to afford dyed cloth. In general, the baron's audience hall was open to all to observe his justice, though some barons could and did restrict this from time to time. Ralno's list was actually a short one. Guelsor looked at the small, nervous group in the audience hall and spoke quietly to Ralno. Everyone wants someone else to be first to test the new baron's temper, eh? Lord, I'm not certain, but Guelsor waved a hand. Salter's tears. You have my official leave to be honest. Sorry, you have my official leave to be honest, my good steward. All the people already really know all the people really know of me is that I was sent by the king to receive this barony, which lately belonged to a rebel. And what fool would not worry that I might consider everyone to be rebels, to be given short shrift? Ralno did not smile. And knowing that you suffered grievous wounds fighting the rebels, would you blame them, Lord Baron? And the Baron's face went serious again. I hope one day to walk among my people without this palpable sullenness come up between us. Do you feel it, Ronald? I feel it, Lord. And I hope that with some time you and they may grow more tolerant of each other. Shall I call the first case? Please do. So the morning went on. A list of grievances, most of them petty, a strayed cow, a moved boundary marker, a dowry not paid, or not paid in the manner agreed on, and on and on. The final case, however, proved to be of more interest. The deputation of, the deputation of three villagers wearing drab brown tunics and trousers, which marked them as farmers, approached him with nervous bowings and bobbings. One was tall and thin, one was short and stout, and the third was midway between. A nearly matched set, muttered Gwalsor to Malgathep. The lean one spoke for the group, and the two others seemed to almost be along only to keep him company. Lord, I be Thralno. And these be Dardic and Jolas, all of us from Burio Guilazol. We be here to beg your protection, Lord. Gwalsor sat straighter. This seemed like more than strayed sheep or shifted field markers? And what do you require protection against? There's little hesitation. Then Thralno. There's a little hesitation. Then Thralno carried on. Lord, from before the time of my grandsire, we o Gwyl's ol be subject to Baron o Grandel Castle. Now, 2 weeks gone, Baron Wardrick sends armed men saying, we be is. We be not wishing to live under the rule o Baron Wardrick, and thus we come to you, Lord. And by what right does he claim your village? Demanded Gwalsar. Even as he spoke, he realized it was not these people from whom he should be demanding answers, but from Wardick himself. He wondered what sort of man Wardick must be, that these peasants would prefer some unknown quantity to him. And of course they would not tell him. No peasant would take the risk of speaking ill of one baron to the other. But Thralnos steadied himself in the face of the baron's anger. My lord, the beck have changed her course. He be saying, as how we now on his side of the beck, we be is. Which beck is this? Lord, the Fling Kettle Brook. Ever she were a part of the border between your lands and those of old Baron Wardick. This year she changed her course and flows now on our west. I see. Gwalsar considered for a moment. This was not a decision to be taken hastily. I will take advice and decide on how to deal with your petition. You may go. Gwalsar looked around the room. We are all here then? Good. I would first hear from the lawyers as to the legality of what Baron Wardick has done. Ralno shepherded forth a man in the flowing black garments of the lawyers, complete with the flat black three-cornered cap of the master. I am Derelent, master lawyer to the late baron, and master lawyer at your pleasure. So tell me then, Derelent, is Wardick within his rights? Derelent's angular face took on a solemn look. Lord, the cases and precedents are uncertain. Such matters have been decided now one way, now another. In most cases, immediate possession has been the deciding factor. You are saying that since Wardick is presently in possession of the land in question, it is his? I might not put it so simply, my Lord Baron. If the situation were reversed and you had armed folk on the land in question, it would likely be ruled as yours, whatever the course of the brook. And this involves appeals to the crown, does it not? Yes, Lord. And how long, if ever, will it take for such a case to be decided? My lord, the king's court is busy, and there are many important cases always pending. And you are going to be careful not to say anything that seems as though you're finding fault with his majesty, are you not? Derelent stood silent, his expression only mildly reproachful. My home, Gwalsar continued, was on the northern border, far from the center of the kingdom. But still I know how the court runs. And while I may have some favor with the king, if I were to run to him for every least thing, that favor would soon wear thin. He tapped his fingers idly on the leather cap that covered the stump of his wrist. I suppose you're telling me, though, you will not use open words, that if I desire this village and its inhabitants to belong to my barony, then I shall have to recover them by force of arms. My lord, began the lawyer. Walser raised his hand. I believe you have told us all you can tell us. He returned to Foraith. Captain, what force can we take to Gwilla's hole within, say, 3 days? Foraith answered immediately. Near enough 50, Lord. That's armed men, including about 20 footmen with pikes and about 15 archers. Give us 5 days and we could have 100. Hmm. And what force would you suspect Baron Warwick has at the village? Hard to say, my lord. He's more men to send than we do, that's for certain. But he knows our situation, so he won't likely have sent anything near what he might have. But if we set the people to building up fortification, if they've set up the people to building up fortifications, then we might be hard put to deal with even 30. And it seems to me that if we give them time, they will set up fortifications. Gather the forces, Foraith. We leave in 3 days. Lord, Foraith protested, I ain't been no marshal. I be no more than a captain of the castle guard, and that only because I were left in charge. I see. Gwalstar looked around. All of you? Be about your business then. Foraith, stay with me. When they were alone, he looked at the captain of the guard. Foraith, the barony lacks a marshal. It lacks many a rank who marched off to die with the old baron. What I am left with is the younger sons of men who died with the old baron, or men who, for one reason or another, did not march with him. I'll be frank with you. There's not many of them that I trust right at this moment. But yourself, you only have the position into which you have been promoted, and with the pay that it grants you, there seems to me to be little likelihood of your seeking to take my place. So I would have you serve as my marshal. Father's boots and breeches, Lord, I ain't being no dar. I be only a son of a common man recruited to the Baron's service. And all these years you've served and learned your business. I'll warrant there's none of the nobles who have the knowledge of the military affairs of the barony that you have. They'll never accept me, Lord. Gwalstar's face went grim. We'll see about that. Gwalstar looked around the room at the gathered nobles. Not all were here, of course. Nobles were a proud lot, and not even a king's command could necessarily bring every noble to council. The word would pass around, though, if there was if only through official messages being sent to all kings holders and all knights holders and all knights present at the castle. Gentlemen, I have it in my mind to appoint a new marshal for my forces. There was an immediate silence in the gathering. This was an important position. Whoever filled it would be a man of influence. I have chosen Foraith Handolov for this position. His commands in military matters are mine. Is there any among you who objects? There was a storm of protest. Gwalstar raised his hand. The noise abated, but only a little. Silence! He commanded. There were still rumblings of protest, but he appointed to one stout and florid man who had been very vocal. You have a reason why Foraith ought not to be promoted? Marquian Hardelevant, my lord Baron. Do you say that this peasant with cow manure on his boots will still be giving orders to me? Do you reject my right to give orders in this barony, Marquian Hardelevant? No, not at all, lord, but then I am free to order my barony as I wish. And I have said Foraith's commands will be my commands. You would be wise to follow his commands. And if you have protests, bring them to me after you've carried out those commands. Silence resounded. Now, is there a protest beyond the fact of his births? He leaned forward. Listen, all of you. If any of you, greatest to the least, should disobey my commands or even be dilatory in carrying them out, then you had best be sure that I die as a result of your actions. For if I do not, you surely shall. Any further questions? You have trouble with that crowd, you know. I know, Melga. I know. But I've already got too little to work with and too much to fight against. Best I should have at least one person who can trust I can trust not to make a mess of things out of scrambled. Wow, let me try that again. Best I should have at least one person who I can trust not to make a mess of things out of some scrambled notions of self-importance and loyalty to the late Mariner Fowl. And there we go. So yeah, that is chapter 2. I guess in this one I will speak to various ways of speaking, because we have somebody who is a foreigner, and then we have people who are of like a different class. So we have all these mixture of different people, and they're all talking in different styles and tones, and that's just the way they are. It's going to be throughout the whole entire story. I'm gonna have to decide if they're going to be too much. Like, um, it's challenging because I want to be able to have them. They all have their own voice, literally their own voices, because you can tell who are the noblemen, who are the lowerly born, because it's a caste system. So there's people of different social ranks, and also people of from different countries. So in that regard, I want to maintain even though it might be I don't feel like it's too challenging to read. Um, it's inflections, it's how people carry themselves. Um, in some ways I kind of get a better way because I hear when I'm hearing people talking, because I'm in a city that has a lot of different people from different countries. Um, it's interesting to be able to hear the way people will speak English, as that's my native tongue. It's interesting because different languages have different modes of speaking, different orders of the way they order a sentence, and so that's why you get the kind of um, way the strangeness and awkwardness that Malga speaks, because he's from a different country and they don't order their sentences the same way people who speak English do. And then you even see differences in the different social classes, how they speak differently as well. So it's very language rich, and I'm hoping it's not too much for people. I'll probably, once I get everything all written out, I'll probably be sending out, because it's one thing for me to be speaking it out loud, which I'm butchering it. I recognize this because normally I would want to do a bunch of different readings and then be able to like kind of each person would have their own way of talking, and so I would like clip that and then be able to talk, be able to basically act out what they're all saying, just in different tone intonations, that sort of thing. I wouldn't necessarily go so far as to change voices entirely because that's not me, but to be able to like speak in the tones and feelings that they would speak. So, anyway, that's enough of my babbling. I now have some editing to do, and I have 2 chapters to edit because I only got a little bit done on the first one. So, I have a lot more work to get done tonight. And yeah, so tomorrow, tune in again between 5:30 and 7:30. I wish I could give you guys a better warning about that. Um, However, it's going to be what it's going to be. I will do my best, and I really appreciate everyone who's tuned in tonight. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you all again very, very soon. Okay, bye.